All right, so starting over. The bill was passed on August 7th. You can see there's major investments in energy production and climate change, which I highlight here because it's relevant to you all. 369 billion direct investment to ensure energy security, reduce carbon emissions, and various other items. Going on, really, the bill split into two ways to fund or help people. There's true funding, which is grants and money, sort of like an RFI process. Then there's really tax credits and loans. I'm not going to go into the loans part today. I'll talk a little bit about the tax credits. Not a tax professional, so that becomes a little less clear. But really, like, who's the money's coming from? And I'm going to show a quick slide I made up next on the process. The federal government basically has this humongous pot of money, right? Billions of dollars. They then basically appropriate it down to the departments. This is really the high level top, let's say 10 or 15. There is a lot of smaller monies being appropriated as well. I don't even have on here, like the National Parks Office, and are all getting monies out of the IRA spending or IRA bill. So I created this just for myself, to be honest. So the federal government has this massive pile of money that they appropriated in a bill. The way this works is they then send it to federal agencies who have two ways to do this. On the left, they can do an RFI followed by an RFQ, and then they award the money. On the right, they can choose to give it to states, county, local. You'll see, even like I said, they can give it to a tribe, whatever. And then there's an RFI, RFQ process in that locality, in that state, in that county, what have you, and then it's awarded. If anyone's ever been involved in RFI and RFQ, and I've just written a few of these for our company, basically a request for information will come out that's a specific grant from the government or funding coming from this bill, and they'll say you have 2 weeks. It's usually really quick. You have 2 weeks to comment on this in the RFI process. And what I tell people, that's kind of scoping or molding the actual award so that you become in scope for it. I'll give you one quick example. The GHG fund, which I'll get to, put out an award a couple weeks ago. And it was very general, saying we're going to give monies if you can reduce greenhouse gas. My company has some solutions that we're working on that'll basically prevent fertilizers from emitting. I think 7% or something of all GHGs in the US are coming off of fertilizers. So we have a coating solution that'll encapsulate fertilizers, the GHGs, and the emissions of it, mostly nitrous oxide. And then that coating, the idea will it'll biodegrade or decompose naturally. So we have that as an idea. We don't have the solution. So I submitted an RFI saying we want agriculture in scope for these monies because they weren't. Now it might work, it might not. And so the RFQ will then come out probably in a couple months. And hopefully it has agriculture in so we can submit. So it's really, this is kind of the high level way on how this process works. Any questions on that?
Maybe Tim, we could do questions at the very end. So that you're
basically for this, like I created a 2-page kind of letterhead and submitted it through a website. Each of the RFIs typically has their own website for these.
If everyone can go on mute, that would be great.
So just a couple of the relevant ones. DOE, since I know we all know them and we work with them, they have 10 billion allocated just to energy efficiency. Now, as you can see, I don't think it's me echoing. You can see they'll pass the money to states, local governments, tribes, or even back to homeowners, like I said, and res efficiency rebates, et cetera. Basically, the DOE has not written any RFIs yet. I don't have an example. Can you mute people, Salima?
I'm trying to figure that out right now.
Oh, all right. But yeah, so DOE will at some point come out with the RFI and will say and they might have 10 RFIs of $1 billion. They might have, hundreds of RFIs of millions of that's why this process becomes kind of cumbersome. You have to basically be signed up to receive the alerts from these agencies, and then they'll shoot them to you. And then you have a couple weeks or so to apply or kind of reply to the RFI, and then the RFQ comes out from the DOE. So it's not the easiest thing, especially when you're talking all these agencies in a 1,400-page bill. Another one I thought was interesting for you all, if 20, 30 districts have federal buildings in the district, there's a whole lot of money coming out, 250 million. Basically, GSA is saying they want to convert to high performance green buildings. Again, that's very generic. Second one is 2.1 billion to install low embodied carbon materials. Again, very generic until the actual RFIs or RFQs come out, and then emerging technologies, sustainable technologies. So, you know, if a 2030 district or in Dallas or wherever has federal buildings and they want to, you know, are going to update their building, they're going to get government money to do so. And I believe this will include anything from solar to insulation, to building sealants, to HVAC, everything. But again, to be determined once the guidance or RFIs are written.
Yeah, Tim, we have Tyler with GSA.
Yep.
So we have about, I want to say 4 to 5 GSA buildings here in the district.
Yep. This is actually the one I was just talking about that we put an RFI in because it was so generic to get agriculture included. This is just 27 billion saying if you can deploy technologies that lower emissions, then you know, you're going to be in scope. You could see this one, it's very broad. So to me, buildings obviously fall under this. Like I said, agriculture falls under this, and industrial falls under this. You can see I highlighted here, they're including distributive technologies on rooftops. I know it says residential, but again, multifamily would fall into there for the multifamily properties in the Dallas district. Labeling's kind of interesting. I thought the industry would go this way anyway, but they're basically giving 100 million to the EPA to come up with basically labels for products. EPDs are the product declarations, transparency, what's in your product, how does it affect the environment, you know, what's the chemical makeup, everything. And basically this is going to not force people, but I think transparency is going to make people think twice about what they're using in construction to get low embodied carbon materials. Frankly, this is where our customers have interest, not in the labeling, but in switching their portfolio to lower embodied carbon materials and then having these labels on it. So I think a lot of our industries, especially construction, is going to go to kind of this tagging and labeling, and they're really letting the EPA, I think, take the lead here when it comes to the building side of things. And then my guess is GSA and everyone will put in rules that say if you don't have this label, we're not going to use your product, is what I heard. Finally, codes, which I think we're all pretty familiar with. They're going to provide $1 billion to support states and local governments to basically adopt and move up to code. I'm sure some of you have seen the code maps and how different states, different areas, different counties even are on all different types of codes. They're basically going to push monies out into the community to update residential and commercial codes. And I highlighted here, they want commercial buildings to get up to 2019 ASHRAE or equivalent or greater energy savings. Boring. Is that a question? No. All right. So the not as clear part are tax credits. Anytime we get into tax codes, it's a little squirrely to me. Really, this is just a comment. It's going to rely heavily on tax code to advance clean energy. This is directly from the bill. I stole this with pride from EESI, which our DC office is part of. This is a summary of all the tax credits. By the way, I don't have a year on any of this because frankly, everything is different. So the DOE money could be 22 to 26, and some of these tax credits could be through 26, some can be through 2030. It all depends on the office or department of the government that's pushing out either the tax credit type information or that's pushing out the grant money. So there's no true date on this. From everything I read, it's at least a 10-year bill, meaning there should still be monies or incentives flowing for this through about 2032, from what I see. All these aren't like annual or this year or next. This is kind of over the long haul of the bill. As you can see, tons of money for renewable energy, clean electricity investment. And then also they're giving, I saw like a chart that'll be in the thing Salima sends out. They're giving like per wattage type credit breaks or tax breaks on what you produce. You'll see it in which she sends out clean manufacturing, residential and energy efficiency. It's in the summary document. I think some of you remember, I think Obama started it, Trump might have got rid of it, and then might have brought it back, but all the residential energy credits are back. So when I went to get solar 2 years ago, I had to take a Pennsylvania state credit because there's no federal credit at that point. They were phasing it out. I remember maybe 10 years ago, I got a tax break for new windows and a new screen door, like storm door. All those are coming back. You'll see the chart and what Salima sends out for like advanced water heaters, going to, I think even Energy Star type appliances, there might be some credits coming back into the mix here. So a lot of tax advantages coming for both basically us as homeowners, and then as well as multifamily tenants, and then also, commercial building owners. Couple of these, I'm not going to get into all the details. This is the production credit. And you can see here, they extended it to 24. I think it was going to end. And there's going to be credits for what you produce from solar, wind, geothermal, biomass, hydropower, etc. So they're moving out a lot of these years that we're supposed to phase down. You can see wind was going to phase out. They're moving it out. So a lot of this is extending programs as well that were about to end. This is the investment for solar. Again, if you make credits into geothermal and solar and the like, you're going to get credits back on your taxes for making those investments. And I believe it's commercial and residential again. Commercial buildings, energy efficiency, they're going to extend it. I think it was supposed to end maybe at the end of this year or next, but basically now they're saying you can reduce, the baseline's lower. You can get a deduction at 25% energy efficiency savings. In the past, it was 50. They're referencing at a very old ASHRAE here of 2007. Again, the document you're going to get has a ton of details on how you can apply and get these credits. This one I put because I think you have multifamily. This is for extended through 2032. So again, you're 10 years out. These are tax credits when you get like Energy Star or Energy Star ready multifamily housing. I circle multifamily because that would be in the district. I have more than residential. I think that's all I had. I know it's a lot. I believe the document that you'll get really lines it out nicely. And also for you, any of you that have EVs or looking at it, there's a whole section on purchasing an EV and what you can give back. There's entire sections on like clean fuels for industry. So like if my company decides to switch our plants, which we're looking at, to like green hydrogen, I think we're gonna be able to get some tax credits. Or if we switch to 100% renewable, bring in clean fuels for our fleets and stuff, moving away from diesel or gasoline, I think we can get some credits as well as a company. So it's a big burly document and process that tried to break down a little bit in 15 or 20 minutes, but
Tim, I actually have a couple of questions that people have sent over to me. You have definitions for some of this stuff, because I know that the question was, do you have definitions to define what that actually falls under or what that means? Like, for example, multifamily, what, is there a definition for that?
Yeah.
So if you have that, maybe you can share that doc as well. If
it's not in that 40-page document, then I think we'll have to go to the larger bill and do searches, which I can find the bill and send it to you, but it's public record.
Yeah, I can also do that. I'll go through the document you sent over to me as well, and maybe highlight if I can, if there's a definition section in there.
What I will say is, and I don't know if anyone's ever read a government RFI, they will, or government legislation, they will define the terms 5 times in a 10-page document. All these documents, I swear, are repeat page after page, but they'll define what, clean energy is. They'll define what's advanced manufacturing or clean manufacturing. They'll put definitions into the RFI process as well, and into the tax code. But yeah, take a look at the document. If it's not in there, then I have a copy somewhere of the whole bill, or I can ask our group in DC. So don't dig.
Okay, great. And then the second question that somebody had was, when does this all start, or the
It already has.
started at different times? Did they start?
Yeah, and that's the hard part. Yeah, so sorry. And the way this works, and they call it guidance. So each of the departments get appropriated the amounts, and that's public, and it's in the document. It says DOE gets X billion from this whole bill. And then DOE has to write guidance, which leads to the RFIs. Some of them have started, some haven't. I honestly think some of the departments, frankly, and not to get into politics, I think they're waiting for the new House and Senate to be put in place, because I think some of them, there's a little bit of worry that they might push out guidance or RFIs, and then the new House tries to block items, to be honest with you. That's kind of the chatter I've heard. So some agencies are moving forward quickly. I've seen stuff coming out. I mean, there's irrelevant ones too. I've seen, not irrelevant in public opinion, but to you guys, I've seen ones for like, that already came out for energy efficiency on an Indian reservation in Wyoming or whatever, right? I mean, I've seen stuff trickling out almost every week now. So that becomes the problem. There's no cadence, there's no schedule from the government that says this is coming out here. The only true end date I've seen is most of this will be out by 2032. And I mean, just as a comparison, when the infrastructure bill was announced in January of, is it 20, I think, right? Might have been, it was either January of 20 or maybe January of 21. From what I understand, the first monies were awarded from that infrastructure bill this summer. So I think it was January 21. It took a year and a half. So I mean, that's
2021.
Yeah. So the first monies, I believe, were like June, started to actually flow, where people were getting checks. And you're seeing stuff now where people are just starting to get their infrastructure bill monies like today. And so that's how long some of this takes. Now, I do know some of the stuff we're looking at for my company, we're putting in for some of these to help cover some spend at the end of 2023 for us at our sites and going into 24. So it'll literally just trickle out by agency with no rhyme or reason or schedule, which kind of stinks, but.
Yeah, so okay, so so we got the definitions, the when, and then EVs. So there's I guess we understand that there'll be individual tax credits or incentives, but what about for commercial real estate? Not just for like government buildings like GSA, but what about private buildings?
For
real estate, for EV infrastructure.
Okay, you're saying infrastructure. I need to look at that.
If you don't have an answer, I can always get one from you, but that was one of the questions.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing actually for, and I guarantee you it's buried. I mean, in theory, like the GHG reduction fund, you can say we need to put in EV chargers to reduce emissions so people move to EVs, right? So I think there's some gray, very broad bills that were covered. Let me look at that one. The way it was written was mostly about us buying cars and or people buying fleets of cars that are EV, and there's up to like a $7,000 credit, I think, if you go from a combustion vehicle to a plug-in. And I don't think they're covering hybrids, to be honest, if I remember correctly.
And what about the charging stations, getting those into buildings as well?
Yep, let me look at that one and email you.
Okay, great.
I read the whole 1,400 pages, but I didn't memorize it.
Because we have a couple of perspectives here. I have a lot of building folks on, so they're wondering, well, other than GSA, how is this going to flow to us as well. And then I've got our professional members who are looking at it from a vendor perspective and saying, well, you know, how do I get my clients these funds? And then we've got the community member perspective of the resource and availability of this information. So, you know, I have to look at it from those three angles.
I think the biggest benefit for building owners at first glance of this is something like, you know, if you're going to go to rooftop solar or change out your HVAC to high performance, there's going to be money somewhere in this for you. It's a matter of finding that somewhere and when. And I know that sounds gray, but that's sometimes how this works. So I do believe that it'll be there. The one thing I don't see in my role in my company and just in general, I was not happy. There's like nothing on recycling that I can find, even though to me, recycling is a way to drop emissions. And if you make things more circular, it's for the better. I didn't see one thing in this bill really on recycling infrastructure for commercial buildings, which we talked about on one of the calls here with you. I believe that, you know, even in Dallas, it's just not where it needs to be yet. And I can tell you right now, it's not in Pittsburgh either. But so that was a little disheartening that they didn't include with all this money. There's nothing that truly sticks out as recycling.
Yeah.
I do know, and I mean, the other thing from the solar side, there's a bunch of tax credits for the people making panels and making parts for panels. So people that make inverters, people that make the different, you know, the actual cells and everything. There's a whole list that someone like Jacob probably understands all the parts and I don't of what goes into solar. And there's a bunch of different credits in that document I sent to you for the parts that create a solar system, more from the manufacturer making it. And I think honestly, and there's true language in it, it's to get the production here. There's actually a lot of language that wants to use production for a lot of this in the US, or you're not going to get the monies.
Okay. I know that you have to hop off in a few minutes, but are there any quick questions? You can always email me questions, or I can put Tim's information in the chat. I'm sorry, in the meeting notes on Monday, and you can reach out to him as well. One
general comment, Salima, you're on the meeting, but I'll say it. We're, as a 2030 high-level organization, we're trying to, and it's, again, it's not there yet. We're going to try to streamline this where as we see relevant type funding announcements, et cetera, come out, we're sending them to our key point person, who's Dave Lowe, that Salima and I know very well for a long time. And then he will distribute it out to each of the city heads like Salima, that she can then say, hey, everyone, we find this as a group, we found this relevant. Take a look if you want to make comments, apply, et cetera. And I think that's going to help all of you a lot, that kind of have at least another set of eyes looking for this, because you can easily miss these announcements if you're not looking. Go ahead. I think, Jacob, were you going to ask something? Or no?
No.
Hey, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
This is Adam from GBI. I just wanted to clarify one question. Of course it's me. I just wanted to clarify the question about commercial buildings, that there is 179D is the only part that really covers commercial buildings, and it's the commercial buildings tax deduction program that they target tax deductions for commercial projects that improve energy efficiency. Mm-hmm. It was already an existing and permanent tax program, but they used the IRA to update it. And according to Jenna Hamilton, they made it more confusing, but we're waiting for some more guidance on that one.
But this is on the tax side, right? Not on the actual funding out side.
Yeah, it's on the tax side, but it's included in the IRA.
And again, the funding to me is hard to say where's all the building money going to be, because again, like the one I showed, GHG reduction 27 billion, didn't say buildings, it didn't say not buildings, so they're very vague until you see the guidance or the RFI written. But thanks, Adam. Anyone else before I hop? Like I said, you can send questions. And actually, Adam's colleague that I was talking about, Jenna Hamilton's the one that's going to do some presenting on this bill to Salima in a couple weeks, and then probably to a mass audience sometime in January or February. She's very good and very well connected in DC.
Yeah, GBI is a great resource for us. So as the 2030 District Network, Covestro, Tim, he's always, he volunteered for this, or maybe he was drafted.
Well,
I don't know. But thank you so much, Tim. We really appreciate it. It was a great high level. And, from here, we can kind of figure out how we want to push forward with different sessions, kind of understanding or not understanding what's going on. Maybe that's what we need to be doing. But just really excited about this and looking forward to the sessions and really getting that money into Dallas and into the district, and really getting our building owners, both GSA and private, and even the city of Dallas, really pushing forward in our 2030 goals. So thank you so much, Tim, and thank you, everyone.
I have to go present on mattress recycling. So a wonderful topic, but a necessary one. So
thank you,
everyone. I will have a good holiday. If I don't talk to you all, and Selima will talk. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
See ya.